And I'll turn my chat box off so I don't get distracted. Turn that off. Okay, good. So yeah, very big welcome everybody. Lovely to see you again, and thank you for making this time to attend to your own mind. And as I've said a number of times, this will have an effect on the world. So it's lovely that the title of one of those retreats is Change Your Mind, Change the World. Because everything is affecting everything else, as I've been saying over and over again over the week. So today we're going to move on to love. So the title of the session is And What of Love? And What of Love? We've been talking very much about awareness so far, but it's very traditional to see that awareness and love are both the flavor of a mind that's free. So a mind that's free is very aware, and it's also absolutely full of love, which is quite mysterious, but I'll attempt to point to why that might be the case, and then we'll do a practice where we're going to really explore love for ourselves and love for others. Yeah, so to unpack this a bit, the central theme that we've been exploring through the whole week has been impermanence. One of the central insights of the Buddha. I mentioned at the beginning that my own teacher, Sangharakshita, he said once, and I found this very, very helpful, that if you took all the millions, billions of words in Buddhism, all the great tracts of texts and so on, if you boiled those all down to one word, that word would be impermanence. That word would be impermanence. And of course, that means that everything's changing. Everything. The world, ourselves, even the part of ourselves that's being aware of change, even that is changing. So there's absolutely nothing in the world that's static, absolutely nothing in the world that's fixed and unchanging. And, if we reflect on that, that's very, very deep, because it's not our normal way of perceiving. And what we've done so far is we've been exploring that through the body. First day on Monday, we were really going very deeply inside the body and beginning to tease apart all the solidity and rigidity that we normally experience. I mean, obviously we have a sense of stability in the body, but even our bones, this is so interesting, even our bones are completely replaced every 7 years. So even something that seems completely inert, static, rigid, even that it's got a whole life. It's full of blood and cells and gas exchanges and so on in the bones, and our entire skeleton is replaced every 7 years. So that's amazing. We went into breath on Tuesday. The sense of we can have a sense of whole body breathing. So rather than breath being something that's just happening here, we can feel breathing in the whole body. And we dropped into 360-degree breathing. And I find breathing a very helpful sort of way into a more fluid and open way of being, because breathing is, of course, flowing by its nature. Breathing is completely flowing. We've got air coming in and air going out, and we've got oxygen flowing into all the cells in the body. So it's a very good doorway to a more fluid, open way of being. And then yesterday we looked at thoughts and emotions, and we looked at ways we can work with our thoughts and emotions. And we had the lovely images, melting the snowball of cascading thoughts, not being the stag, which is all tangled up in the undergrowth, but being like the fox, which is just able to move freely through the undergrowth. And cultivating a mind like an elephant rather than monkey mind, which is jumping all over the place. Yeah, so again, we were just getting a bit of a way into this great complex world that can feel located in the head and can feel all tangled up. And the two methods of just simply coming back to the body and the breath over and over again. And then if we've got very charged emotions and thoughts and we just keep bouncing back there, then we become a mind whisperer. and we breathe with that experience, with kindness. We acknowledge it. We don't oppose it. We don't try and suppress it. We breathe with it. And then very gradually we take the charge out of it by bringing in more and more stability, more and more body awareness. And yesterday I also talked about how there's in Buddhism, there's In Buddhism, there's two paths very clearly articulated. So there's the path of contraction, closing down, rigidifying, solidifying, reacting, getting more and more tight. And then there's the path of increasing stability, openness, release, warmth, kindness, love. And it's all to do with what we do with our awareness. Yeah, the way we determine which path we're going to go down in any one moment is what we do with our awareness. So awareness is absolutely key. If we become aware that we're in a really tight, tangled up state, we have the choice to come back to the rock of the body, to come back to the present, come back to breathing. And then we can stay with that and allow that to soften and open. And what happens quite naturally is that can very gently build and grow, and we just become more and more open, more and more in the trajectory of having a freer mind. So rather, to use Bernardo Kastrup's image of the whirlpool, rather than being trapped in the vortex of the whirlpool, as we become more aware, we remember there's this bigger context. We soften the currents of the whirlpool and we're able to be more and more at ease. And meditation practice, what we're doing this week, I think is a really good way of changing our default setting. A really good way of changing our default setting. So we might have a default setting to anxiety, or a default setting to worry or fear, or I talked yesterday about having the moaning radio in the head, just always finding fault with everything. That might be a tendency that some of us have. And we can change that. We can change that so we become a person who's defaulting to a more still, calm, balanced, open, lighter way of being. And I talked the other day about one of the things that I found wonderful about the fruits of meditating over many years is that I have become more lighthearted, which was not what I expected. Yeah, more lighthearted. So that's a lovely, lovely way to experience this world, with more lightheartedness rather than being so sort of bogged down, which is, many of us can feel very bogged down in life, and I feel very bogged down in life at times, but less so than before. And I get a lot of confidence from that. And I was also saying that there's always choice available. So even if we're really a long way down a track of reactivity, we are really stuck, we are really heavy, tangled up. If we can shine the light of awareness into that state, as soon as we're aware of it, we're no longer lost in it. So you might be completely consumed by an internal argument. And as soon as you become aware, wow, I'm just having a big argument in my head, then you're no longer lost in the argument. And then you have that choice point, just put that down, come back to the breath and the body. Yeah, arguing again, come back to the breath and the body. Arguing again, let me breathe with the argument. Let me just soften it a bit by breathing with it. And then gradually guiding back to the body. So the wisdom traditions and Buddhism, they often talk about this process of becoming more aware as awakening. And I really love that, this idea of awakening. So the perspective here is that our normal materialistic, tight, concretizing everything perspective, that's the dream. And when we are able to be more present, alert, aware, that's moving more and more in direction of the truth. So that's interesting. So it's flipping the script, because normally we think, well, this concrete material world that I'm contracting around all the time, that's real, and maybe all this other stuff is fantasy. No, the wisdom traditions, which is based on people's very deep experience, They're saying this is the dream, and as we become more present, we become more aware, we're more sort of here. I mean, you could just have a sense of that right now. Maybe just look around with an aware mind, rather than mind that's lost. An aware mind, really taking in your environment, your body, your thoughts. That's more awake than the way we normally are. So I really love that. So when we're moving from this hard edge sort of dualistic world to something that's often called more non-dual, that is awakening. That's this process of becoming more alert, more present, more alive. And Bernardo Kastrup, he talked about the oceanic mind, that the mind, this mind that can feel so tight and narrow, has the potential to broaden and soften and open and become much more like an ocean. But it's a very special ocean in that it has no edges. It stretches forever, infinitely deep. And as we drop deeper and deeper and deeper into the layers of the mind, the layers of the ocean, it's also a special ocean in that it gets brighter and brighter and gets more and more luminous and radiant. So another way that the awakened mind is often described is that it's luminous. A very famous line in the Buddhist text that the Buddha says, this mind is luminous when freed of the adventitious defilements. And the adventitious defilements is a posh way of talking about all the ways we get tangled up through craving and aversion. Those are the two basic drivers that we have. And then Buddhism often talks about the mind being like a clear blue sky. Again, infinitely broad, infinitely deep, infinitely high, a clear blue sky. Very, very beautiful. One of the things to watch with the blue sky metaphor, and I said this on the first day, is we can think it's up there, and we can sort of move out of the body to go up to the sky up there because we get literal about it. But it's more, we go so far inside that we find the blue sky within us. We sort of tease everything apart, and then it's just space. It's just openness inside, and then the boundaries of inside and outside soften. And it's also said that the quality of this mind is love. I mentioned that earlier on. And that is quite mysterious. Why would that be? That the quality of a mind that's expanding and opening and deepening and releasing is profoundly full of love. Profoundly full of love. That is universally talked about. And again, Penny Satori in her the interview about near-death experiences, it seems that if what people report is as the body falls away at death, you have this experience of tremendous love, tremendous love. So I think what we can take from that, and what I want to explore it today, is that love is natural. Love is natural. Love is a natural aspect of this, of your mind loosening up and freeing up. And very often I think love is something we need to sort of generate from nothing. We've kind of got an empty tank and somehow we're supposed to crank up love. And I think what I'm saying, or I think what the tradition is saying and what I'm saying today, is it's more that we need to learn how to just open up to the fact that as the mind frees up, the heart also frees up. The heart also gets bigger and bigger, and we can rest inside that quality of care and love that we all have. We all have that within us. So it moves away from a perspective of lack, a perspective that somehow I haven't got it, everyone else has got it and I haven't, to a perspective of, oh, it's all here, it's all inside me, it's just covered over. It's covered over by all my habitual ways of being. So how can I drop into that taste of freedom of heart? And there's a really another gorgeous quote in the Buddhist texts that says, loving kindness is freedom of heart. It glows, it shines, it blazes forth. Loving kindness, which is freedom of heart. It glows, it shines, it blazes forth. I find that so beautiful. Yeah. So let's just spend a moment now looking out at the screen again. Let's just have, if you're willing to put your camera on, then that will be good. You don't have to, of course, and flick through the screens. And let's really have this moment to take one another in, allow oneself to be seen, and that all these little faces out there are just like you. Very often we default to difference. Yeah, in some fields it's called othering, which is quite interesting. We turn you into other. But what if you are a me, just like you're a me to yourself, just like I'm a me to myself, and we are all a great we. We're all a great we. We're all a great collective. And everything that I have in my life, you have in your life in the same way. We've all got bodies. We're all breathing. We've all got our everyday mind. We've all got a longing to love and to be loved. Yeah, we often talk about having a longing to be loved, but I think we've also all got a longing to express love, to offer love. We've all got hopes and fears, dreams, regrets, times of suffering, times of happiness, times of joy, times of despair. See if you can drop more deeply into this, that all these faces out there are very dear to themselves, just as we are dear to ourselves. They're all in their own world of complexity, wonder, beauty, heartache. Because if we're honest, we very often see others as objects. We very often relate to other human beings as objects. Maybe a bit utilitarian. They've got a job to do. We want them to do that job. So they're kind of a functional object. Maybe an obstructive object. They get in the way of what we want, which can be very annoying. But we're all deeply wonderful creatures. Mysterious, amazing creatures. And we've all got this potential to release into something much more open and abundant and vast and full of love. And we're all really, really united by core drives. And the core drives are to try to avoid suffering and to be happy. That's what drives every one of us, if we're honest. We're all trying to avoid suffering and to be happy. And if we can understand that's what everyone's doing when they're behaving in ways that we find strange, then we can feel that deep empathy. Iris Murdoch said about love, which I think is very, very good. She said, love is the extremely difficult realization that something other than oneself is real. Love is the extremely difficult realization that something other than oneself is real. If you really, really sat with that phrase, your life would change. Because usually we think, well, I'm the most important person and maybe I'm the only real thing and everything else is just inanimate out there. Okay, so I'm just going to show a couple of images again now to help to deepen this. Can you see that? Can you see that, Nick? Yes, you just give me a thumbs up. Yeah, good, good. Okay, so I think this is the way we normally experience ourselves as humans. We're these little separate lumps going about our lives. These are Anthony Gormley sculptures, and they're amazing because they're all different. But you can see they're completely discrete, aren't they? Solid, discrete, separate, moving along. Obviously, if they had eyes, they'd be able to see one another. But the sense of being completely hard edges between us. Oh, I've got something happening with my light. Never mind. And what we've been doing all week is learning to soften those hard edges, if you like. And I really love this image because we've got water in two different forms. So we've got water as icicles on the left and then water flowing. Exactly the same stuff, exactly the same molecules, H2O. And I think when we're really tight and contracted, closing down, not living in harmony with flow, with impermanence, we're like the icicles, sort of maybe a bit spiky, certainly solid and separate. And all the practices we've been doing this week is to melt that, melt the heart, melt the mind, melt the body, as it were, and become much more fluid and open. And so maybe we're more like this, obviously metaphorically speaking. Maybe we're more like this, and that we are separate in some ways, of course. We're not just a great big blob. You know, I'm here, you're there. I look a certain way, you look a certain way. But the mistake we make is then to solidify around it, as I just said, and to rigidify that. So maybe we're like these two bodies of water. So one person is like the milky, lighter blue. Another person is like the darker blue. And there is an edge between the two. But at that, even that edge is completely changing all the time. So if you tried to climb into the water and find the edge, where is the exact boundary line between those two bodies of water? You'd never, ever find it. You just find this flow of interaction. So I think that's a very good metaphor for perhaps more the way we are as humans. That we're more, our edges are much more porous than we normally realize. Difficult to tell where I come to an end and you begin. Yeah. So kindness becomes really, really important when we realize that we're not in our own little isolated universe doing what we like, but we are continually affecting one another. And we can become an agent for benevolence. We can become an agent for greater ease. We can become an agent for greater receptivity and greater kindness through this continual flow of interactions that is always going on. And it's very obvious when we did that little exercise in a moment ago of just looking out at the screen. It was very obvious how we're continually influencing and affecting each other. Good. Okay, so let's do a practice together now. And I think I'm going to do something with my blind. So if you get yourself set up, I'll just mute myself for a minute. Find the chair that you need, blankets and so on, and we'll move into the meditation. That seemed deeply ironic, talking about radiance and luminosity, and the sun comes and it's really gorgeous and bright, and I pull the blinds down. But it was making it a bit difficult to see. But yeah, kind of strange. Okay, good. So let's settle ourselves down. So we'll do a practice where we stabilize in ourselves, just run through what we've done the last few days, and then we're going to open out. Bring kindness towards our own experience and then open out to be aware of others. And just before we begin, I've got a little poem from Alice Walker. Love, if it is love, never goes away. It is embedded in us like seams of gold in the earth, waiting for light, waiting to be struck. Love, if it is love, never goes away. It is embedded in us like seams of gold in the earth, waiting for light, waiting to be struck. So first of all, let's yield the weight of the body up to the support, the chair, the floor, whatever it is we're sitting upon. Checking our posture. If we need to make any little adjustments, then doing so. If you want to take a deeper in-breath and then release and yield a little more on the out-breath, then by all means doing so. So beginning to settle, arrive, rest. And when you're ready, allowing your breathing to find its own natural rhythm. And allowing our awareness to slide out of the head and to fill the body. Letting our awareness be like water pouring into the whole body. First of all, the legs and the feet, becoming full of awareness. This might be showing up as sensation, as temperature, as contact with the chair, the floor. So feeling into the direct experience of being inside the legs and the feet. Might be buzzing, tingling somewhere, energy. If it feels dull or numb, then being aware of this is also awareness. It's also becoming more aware. Coming to the buttocks, resting on the chair or the stool or the cushions. Seeing if we can yield, release, soften through this area. receiving the support rather than perching on top of it. Now allowing awareness to flow up to fill the entire torso, the front, the back, the sides, inside, and allowing breathing to express itself in the whole torso. The volume increasing a little bit in all directions on the in-breath, subsiding on the out-breath. Being careful not to force or strain, and if it gets a bit tight, then just dropping back into the buttocks, into the legs, the feet. Or dropping back into breathing in the back of the body. Allowing awareness to pour through the shoulders, all the way down the arms to the hands, letting the hands be supported, fingers soft, fingers resting in the present, not reaching the future, grabbing onto the past. Allowing the shoulders to fall away from the midline of the body, falling into the support of gravity. And now allowing our awareness to fill the neck and the head as well, so it's the whole body now. Tuning into the neck and the head and the foreground of awareness for a few moments. And seeing if we can experience the head as a limb of the body. Very often we experience the head as somehow separate from the body, but it has its own physicality, sensations, temperature. And softening the face, the brow and the eyes, cheeks, the lips, the tongue and the jaw soft. If your brain feels solid, full of thoughts, like a boulder, maybe even getting a sense of the brain softening a little bit as we bring body awareness to the fore. We feel our awareness with the body, with sensations. There's less room for thoughts. So broadening now to be aware of the whole body. This process of embodying, this flow of experience through the moments. Sense of stability, but it's not a rigid stability. Letting sensations flow, let breathing flow in the whole body, and rest inside that experience with our awareness. tuning into our emotional weather. How are we feeling right now? And again, being careful not to concretize this experience. Again, it's fluid, it's changing. What's the general tone of the emotional weather right now? Bringing this into the practice so we're not leaving anything out. Maybe you don't know, maybe you feel dull, confused. Awareness of that is also awareness. It's also succeeding in the practice. What kind of thoughts are flowing through the mind? So we're receiving everything into our field of awareness. When we notice, we're lost. In the noticing, we're aware, and we can choose to come back to the rock of the body, stability of body and breathing, and being present. Now let's open to kindness within ourselves, first of all. As I was saying earlier, it seems that kindness and love are completely natural to a mind that is opening, a mind that is releasing, a mind that is becoming less tight and contracted. As Alice Walker says, that love is embedded in us like seams of gold in the earth, waiting for light, waiting to be struck. Let's do this in quite a simple way, seeing if we can bring a kindly attitude to our experience right now. It's recalling the way you naturally respond to somebody that you love. Kindness, openness, sensitivity, and seeing if we can bring that attitude towards our own experience right now. Keeping it simple, doesn't need to be grand or big. It might just be a simple acknowledgement of what's going on with a quality of warmth, quality of interest, quality of care. This is what it's like to be me right now. Let it flow. Let it be held in warmth. If there's something painful going on physically, mentally, or emotionally, again, acknowledging that. Bring to mind how you would respond to that in somebody that you naturally love. You have that within you. We all have that within us. And then seeing if we can shine that light of love into our own experience of care, of kindness. So tapping into something that's natural, just waiting to be uncovered, discovered, allowed to express itself within us. If you've got feelings of contentment arising, maybe expansiveness arising, heart opening, and allowing our awareness to dwell there. Again, quite lightly, we don't need to force it. There's a lovely expression, what we dwell on, we become. So if we dwell upon these little glimmerings of expansiveness, of warmth, of kindness, they will quite naturally build and grow. Checking that the buttocks are still soft, breathing is still soft, jaw soft, face soft, hands soft. So staying centered, staying grounded, allowing the circumference of our awareness to expand and to open, and including everybody here in this session. It's 109 of us from many different places, many different countries. We've all got unique circumstances, and yet deep down we're all so very, very alike. None of us likes to suffer. We all want to be happy and fulfilled, at peace with ourselves and others, the world around us. We're all breathing. So perhaps recalling that little exercise we did before of just gazing out at the screen and seeing all these lovely people. Bringing them to life in our imagination, bringing you all to life in our imagination. And allowing kindness to flow towards all of us. Well, the way I like to do this is on the in-breath. I breathe in awareness of you all, really taking you in. And then on the out-breath, just imagining kindness, goodwill, well-wishing, pouring out towards you and filling each of you. but you might have some other way, of course. The main thing is not to force it, but to rest in this natural flow of connectedness that we all have all the time when we're open to it. Everything I long for myself, may I long for that for you as well. To love and to be loved. To have a mind that is more open, less contracted, more connected, more aware, more loving. May it be so. It's very easy with this kind of practice to over effort, to try too hard, to force, get tight in our own body and mind. So let's just check that the body is still soft, breathing soft. We're resting in something that is entirely natural. A sense of connectedness, sense of openness, sense of kindness and love. This great seam that's already there in each of our beings, our heart. Now, allowing the circumference of our awareness to expand even more. So we're staying centered and grounded. We're opening on and on and on to include all life everywhere. 7 billion humans just like oneself. Always trying to avoid suffering and to be happy, fulfilled, at peace, sometimes in very misguided ways, just leads to more suffering for them and others. We're all breathing, all longing to love and to be loved. All the other creatures. Everything flowing, no hard edges, no rigidity. This great sea of awareness, this great sea of love and kindness. Let's see if we can rest there. Acknowledging the horrors of the world, the wars, and acknowledging the tremendous kindness and courage in the world. Letting it all in. At any point you feel overwhelmed, then broadening awareness, stabilizing awareness. Now bringing the weight of the body to the foreground of awareness, really feeling into the contact between the buttocks in the chair, the feet on the floor. Breathing in the whole body. And letting go a little bit of this broad, open awareness. Not shutting it down, but more shifting. So this awareness of stability and self-awareness fills our field. Let's just move into a few moments of just sitting, letting go of any effort whatsoever. Just being, absorbing the effect of the practice and noticing the effect of the practice. Holding everything in kindness. Now just introducing a tiny bit of movement into the body as we bring the practice to a close. Maybe fingers and toes. Notice the impulse to grip immediately, grip around the breathing, maybe grip in the mind. Seeing if we can stay inside the movement, stay inside the sense of pliability, flow. And then in our own time, coming to bigger movements, opening the eyes. And again, just noticing if your mind is immediately rushing into the future, what's coming next, and see if we can stay present. The future will arrive in its own good time. Yeah, perhaps forming an intention to take this quality of something that's soft around the heart, more deeply connected with ourselves, more deeply connected with others, seeing into our commonality. Seeing if we can take that into the day, that others are not objects, but they are sort of equal participants in this flow of life, if I could put it that way. And that how we are has a huge effect, as I'm sure we all know. So I'm aware that some of you probably need to go in a moment, off to work. So I hope you have a good day and can take some of this quality with you into your day. Yeah. And as I said yesterday, that in reality, the practice for most of us is noticing when we're completely lost and then finding that choice point, coming back to the present, the body, the breath, and then opening and perhaps just looking at the person in front of you and remembering, that's a human being just like me. It's not an object. He or she is not an object. They are not an object. Okay, so I'm just going to stand up myself. So if any of you need to move, in fact, I would really encourage people to move, because bodies aren't designed to be static for long periods of time. And then we've got this period for exploration together of what happened, any questions and so on. So I'm just going to mute myself, Nick, while I raise my desk up, and then if you let me unmute. Good. Yeah, so you might have questions, or you might just want to share something. For example, heavy snowing in Sheffield. That's exciting. I have envy. I love snow. But let me just rejoice in the fact that you have snow, which you may or may not want.
So Amy's saying, I notice my mental state is a bit agitated today, and I sense an aversion to aware and awareness. Is there a danger in becoming neurotic about what's going on? Perhaps some letting go and laughing is needed.
So Amy, would you be willing to unmute and we could just have a bit of a inquiry about that?
Sure.
Oh, I get to hear the New Zealand accent, even better.
Yeah, I
Those of
did
you that
this on
weren't here.
purpose so you could hear me.
Yeah. So Amy and I both are from Wellington, which is very exciting. It's a tiny little place in New Zealand. Well, not tiny, but small by European standards. Okay, so you're saying I sense an aversion to aware and awareness. So what do you mean by that?
Well, it sort of feels like a bit of a loop. Like, okay, I think I feel like, oh, I should be aware. Oh, I'm not aware, and I don't want to be aware. What would it feel like if I weren't aware? And is it okay if I'm not aware and I can just not be aware and kind of be a bit all over the place? And it sort of feels like a bit of a loop going around, perhaps a bit kind of neurotic.
Okay, good. So even the idea of being aware generates a kind of aversion because because you're a bit agitated, so that's unpleasant.
Exactly, because I probably don't want to actually notice that I'm agitated, and perhaps being aware is not helping, and perhaps I do need to distract myself. So maybe there are times when we do need to distract ourselves.
Yeah, so let's just explore that for a bit. So how did you become aware that you were a bit agitated? How did that manifest or show up?
Through awareness.
Through awareness. And what was the experience of agitation?
Sort of a flustered, kind of tight annoyance in kind of around here, and then in the mind as well. So a bit sort of, oh.
Yeah.
Like,
So
I don't want to be practicing today.
yeah. Well, that's great that you're saying that, because I'm sure all of us have had that experience at one time or another. It's like, oh no, I'm meditating and I've got this. Yuck.
Yes, go away.
Go away. Exactly.
Or yeah, let it relax.
Yeah. So what happened when you turned towards the experience, as it were, and you became more aware, oh, this is unpleasant? What did you do with that?
I noticed as soon as I started to become more aware of it, it did lose its tightness. And I noticed, I'm getting annoyed with becoming aware of it. And that in itself was interesting, just to become aware of being annoyed of becoming aware.
Yes, good. Yeah. And because then maybe now's the moment to do the octopus teaching. I'm going to give you all the octopus teaching, which I'd wanted to do this week, and I haven't figured out how to bring it in. And it's about how we deal with things that are unpleasant, because that's what Amy's describing as something that's essentially unpleasant. You don't want it. And then, all this training is about, well, include it. And you think, no, I don't want to. And then you include and you think, oh no, and there it is again. And you get, again, the vortex of the whirlpool. You just get sucked into this battle and struggle with being aware of something unpleasant. And then confusion, should I stay with this or should I just lighten up and go all over the place and give myself a break? Yeah. So if you imagine that this hand is the thing that's unpleasant. So in Amy's case, it was agitation, which had these sort of physical components. It might be physical pain, it might be a mental state, yeah. But you got something that you don't want. Yeah. What we habitually do in life normally is we just turn away, don't we? We try to have a life over here, distraction, but like what you're bringing awareness to, but very often we just get into compulsive distraction because we don't even allow the agitation into awareness. We sense, so there's something there I don't want, so we just displace our minds onto something else. So we're trying to have this lovely life over here and we're pushing this away all the time. I mean, and it works with any kind of pain. Can you actually see what I'm doing? I think I can vaguely see myself on the screen. So you just get in this sort of hectic running, and you're putting all this effort into suppressing, go away, and you're running, distraction, compulsiveness. It might be distracting yourself even with things that are also unpleasant, but we've got this habitual pushing away. And when I say things that are unpleasant, what one can do is distract oneself with arguing, for example, or getting really uptight about the state of the world, all these kind of things, because there's something that you're suppressing. So very often in meditation circles, there's this language of turning towards the pain. And Maitreya Bandhu talked about this as well. We thought, turn towards the difficulty. And what people sometimes do, if this is the pain, they think it's this. You've got to sort of stare at it, which is being sort of hyper aware of, and then you get the octopus. This is the octopus teaching. So you get this octopus on your face of your agitation, pain, whatever it is, and you're trying to go about your life. And all you can see is this discomfort. And you think, but I'm turning towards the pain. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. So in your case, Amy, I'm turning towards my agitation. And then it's just really horrible because that's all there is. So I think this language of turning towards is good, but it needs to be, we need to refine it. So rather than doing that, you do this. So here's the pain in my field of awareness. So yeah, I'm letting in the agitation. So I'm not doing that. I'm agitated. Where am I feeling in the body? That's a bit yucky. Breathe, soften, doesn't seem to really be helping. So then you've got all this as well. So you can choose to take your awareness to something else in your field of awareness, which is less tight, less agitated, but you're not doing that. So the agitation is there, but then there's also other things. So you could have chosen to go to some other part of your body. You could have thought, well, it's all a bit horrible up here. So then relax your bum. You could have done that. Let me just settle. Let me just rest. Come into my buttocks. Because as I was saying yesterday, the jaw and the buttocks are very connected. So if we're tight up here, just relaxing the buttocks can really help. Breathing in the lower back. Just come away from all this. Just drop down to the lower back. Maybe open to sounds. Is there a pleasant sound? Maybe find a part of your body that's not contracted and tight. Go there for a little bit. But it's subtle because you can go somewhere else in such a way that you're doing that. I'm going to go over here instead. Or you can do it in such a way that I'm going to have the agitation. I'm acknowledging I'm agitated. I'm not going to close down around that. I'm going to bring kindness to that. And I'm going to broaden my field of awareness to include other things as well. Yeah, so does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. I think it's sort of, maybe you can relate from a New Zealander to a New Zealander, this quite forceful, active,
yes,
go get it, and then, oh, got it, but it's stuck on me.
Yeah. So I think hopefully you'll all remember the octopus on the face teaching. In fact, I've got a teaching aid here. This is hilarious. I was doing this once on a retreat, and somebody sent me an octopus, a knitted octopus.
Right. I'll just wear that with me today then.
Yeah, so it's quite subtle, this language of turning towards the pain. I think including the pain in the field of awareness is better language, probably, because I think, again, New Zealander, we think, oh, I've got to sort of stare it out and face this thing down, and that's just not going to work. You're just going to get more and more aversive, and it's going to be really unpleasant.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, anything else, Nick?
Yep, so there's Helen says, thank you. I have a question about how to be with my thoughts when I wake up in the night or first thing in the morning. Often my mind feels unsettled and worried about the future. And also there's another question asking about, I can't remember where it is, but somebody was asking about evening meditation and morning meditation feeling quite different and wondering why that was.
Okay, so how to be with thoughts in the night. That's really tricky. That is a tricky one. I had a bit of that myself last night because I was thinking, what am I going to do tomorrow? And so I was really kind of working with it. And the first thing is awareness. Here I am lying here with lots of thoughts. That's the first thing. And then really coming into the body can help. So letting your body be really heavy on the bed. So I don't know if I've said this very clearly yet, but it's very interesting that one of the reasons we keep coming back to the body is because if we fill our awareness with something other than the thoughts, so we fill our awareness with the body, with sensation, then there's less room, as it were, for all the thoughts. There's a very lovely graph, maybe I'll bring it along tomorrow, showing there's two triangles, and one triangle is body and sense experience at the bottom, and the other triangle is thoughts. And if you're really in your thoughts, most of your awareness is full of thoughts and just a tiny bit of body awareness. And if you're in your body awareness, most of your awareness is in your body and it's just a tiny bit of space for thoughts. But I'll bring that diagram along tomorrow because it's really good. So in the night, just keep on coming back to the body and to breathing, because very often we've got agitated thoughts, we've got this tight breathing. So just keep on dropping back and resting and dropping back and resting. If that really doesn't work, sometimes getting up and making some notes can be helpful. So if you're worrying about something that has actually got a factual content, getting up and making some notes can release the mind. Because I know what can happen with me, and I think this is very common, as I'm thinking something through, and then I get into, I've got to remember this, can't forget this, I've just thought it all through. And then a moment later, oh no, I've forgotten it all. And then I've got to start all over again. And I think, again, that's quite common. So sometimes just getting up and making some notes is good. Things like getting up, getting some hot milk, something like that. So just sort of quite basic strategies can be helpful. And if all that fails, just look for some kindness. Look for some kindness. Here I am. I've got all these thoughts. It's difficult. How can I soothe myself? Just with a kindly attitude. You know, how would I respond to another person having this experience, somebody that I loved? What would be my natural response to them? And can I shine that on myself? And then also just reflecting, this is not the end of the world. Yeah, I'm going to be a bit tired tomorrow, but that too will pass. Because we can get into what's called catastrophizing, where we think having thoughts in the middle of the night is going to ruin our lives. Well, it won't. It will just mean that you're maybe have a bit of a rough day the next day, but that will pass. So that's that. And then there was the morning and the evening. Yeah, that's very interesting that, you know, some people prefer to meditate in the morning, some prefer to meditate in the evening, and it really doesn't matter. It's completely up to you. And it's good to just look for the time where you feel most relaxed and most alert, because those are the two things you're looking for, or more comfortable and more and most alert. Yeah. And apparently, I've learned this recently. The thing about larks and owls is completely true. That human beings, we are really, really unique in terms of our whether we're a morning person or an evening person. Yeah. I was talking to a sleep expert as part of the work that I do. And she says it's evolutionary because we used to live in tribes and you needed to have somebody on watch 24 hours a day. So some of us are genuinely wired up to be wide awake at night. And some of us are genuinely wired up to be wide awake in the morning. So look for what works for you. That would be the best thing. Yeah.
So this is quite an interesting question. So Kim says, I guess I'm wondering about this idea that love is somehow intrinsic in awareness. It feels like a belief. It isn't always my experience. Sometimes in deep awareness, it just feels emotion agnostic, and others, there's no love at all. Is this idea about love in meditation a belief or a truth?
Gosh. A belief or a truth? Well, let's just talk about experience. So let me see if I can find this myself so I can read that again. Okay. Emotion agnostic, yeah. So the main thing is to stay with your experience, and what your experience is telling you is that you don't know. That you don't know. Are you willing to unmute yourself and have a bit of dialogue about this? It's fine if you're not.
One second, I've just got to unmute her. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I think so. Is that working? Yeah, that's working. Okay, good. Yeah, I guess what I found was, I can't quite remember the words you used, but there was something about, you know, that the deeper you go or the more aware you become, what you find is, what you discover there is more love. And I found, well, first of all, I found that I felt quite averse to that idea, that there was like an aversion coming up. And I kind of, yeah, I guess I thought of like, really? Is that true? Is that how I feel? I don't know that that is my experience. So I guess, I don't know, there was the first kind of an aversion to the idea. So maybe that's where my question came from. Yeah, and then I guess what's in my experience is sometimes I feel like in deep meditation, I don't know if it is the word love, but definitely a feeling of kind of a radiance is there. But in other times, love feels very far from my experience. And certainly maybe when I'm working more with more difficult sensation, or like this morning when my brain is really foggy, like finding love feels very far away. from my experience, you know. And actually, like, even thinking about it kind of creates a bit of tension, because I'm like, oh, I must be doing this wrong because I'm not experiencing that, you know. I'm that's not my experience in this moment, so maybe I'm not doing it right.
Yeah, good. Well, thank you very much for your honesty. 'Cause again, I'm sure many of us can relate to that. Yeah, love is such a big word, isn't it? You know, it can mean so many things. And I think some of us can think, you know, what love means is this massive kind of huge open heart of absolute unconditional love. And then, of course, we just feel miles and miles and miles away from that. But, you know, love can also mean simple kindness, tenderness, care, interest. So in the practice, Kim, when I was leading it, and I was saying, in terms of when we were with ourselves, remember bringing to mind the way you naturally respond to a loved one, and then sort of turning that attitude back to yourself. What happened for you then?
I think I find yeah, like bringing to mind that a loved one, I always bring to mind my niece. She's very easy to love, so that brings up quite a lot of warmth. And then actually, I think turning back on myself, I think again, because I think my current experience is quite foggy and a bit painful, it's sort of, those two things felt quite separate to me in this moment right now anyway. Yeah. So
Yeah, and so
yeah,
how did so then what happened? How did you respond to that?
I think in honesty, I then just got a bit caught up in like the difficult sensations I'm experiencing. I was like, oh no, I'm just feeling really, really, you know, the story of
Yeah.
fogginess. But having said that, then I was like, well, no, bring some awareness to that. Like, what's happening on the edges of the fogginess? You know, the brain fog is not everything. There is like there's stuff happening on the outside. I guess that felt a bit there's ease in that. I mean, that's quite kind, isn't it? I guess.
Yes, exactly. That's brilliant. So that you thought of your niece. Now that's very interesting. So when I said to you, bring to mind the way you'd naturally respond to someone that you love, you had your niece, and it was there straight away, wasn't it? From what you're saying, love, yeah, kindness, and did that feel natural?
Yeah.
So I think that's what's meant when I say that love is natural to an unfolding awareness. It's simple, you know. I think we can these big words and we can think it should be some other experience, but that is it. That response to your niece, that's something that's natural, it's innate, isn't it? And then, you know, you turned it back to yourself and thought, oh no, you know, I'm not feeling that towards myself, it's all a bit tight. Okay, then you brought awareness in. There's something on the edge of my awareness, on the edge of this tightness. You brought awareness in there, and then you said, I suppose that's kindness. That was brilliant. I suppose that's kindness. And that means you were actually having the experience of, you know, natural love for your niece, and then you were able to have this little bit of kindness for yourself. And that's it. It doesn't need to be explosive, massive, huge, just these little moments of, it doesn't have to all be dark and horrible in here. There is this little bit of softness. There is this little bit of ease. That is the practice.
Okay.
Yeah. So this idea that, so I guess I'm wondering about this idea that love is somehow intrinsic in awareness. When you thought of your niece, as you became aware of your niece, would you say that love was intrinsic to that?
Yeah. Yes, definitely. Yeah. It just colors it all, doesn't it? You know.
It does,
Right.
exactly. And your heart knows how to do that. Your heart knows how to do that. So then the practice is, well, how do we bring that into our lives to flavor more and more of our experience towards ourselves and towards others, this natural quality that we've all got. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, thank you.
Well,
Yeah, I
thank
think I
you.
was a
That
bit
was,
overwhelmed by the word love, maybe.
yeah. Well, I really appreciate you drawing that out, because we can be overwhelmed by the word love. And yeah, it can just seem it means ecstasy, or it means something absolutely massive, but it can mean just this tiny little simple moments of natural heart opening that we have within us. Yeah, so thank you very much for drawing that out, Kim.
Thank you.
Good. So we just got 4 more minutes. Is there anything else, Nick?
Yep, so Vidyamala is saying, 2 days running I've experienced intense grief listening to your meditation. This feels healthy and sane to me, but I just wondered if you have anything to say about such a response.
Yeah, healthy and sane. Sounds good. And grief is such an interesting emotion, I think, because it's, it's unpleasant in some ways, but grief is so tied up with love, isn't it? We only grieve because we love. If we had a cold heart, we wouldn't grieve. So it's your doorway to love, I would suggest. So are you willing to unmute for a moment? Vidyakaya? Yeah. So if you, he's happy to be unmuted, Nick.
Yeah, I'm unmuted.
Good. Is it grief or anything specific that's happened recently?
Well, today I kind of, I don't know how to love. I'm complete. When I saw the line of figures, I was in the corner. I wasn't in the line, that's very much a sort of inner child thing. But yesterday, I can't even remember what triggered it, but it was exactly the same. And just halfway through, I started crying. And it's interesting because I used to cry quite a lot, and in the last few years, I cry very little. I feel very stuck around it. So, as I say, which is why I think it feels healthy and. But, yeah, no, thank you for just for saying, yeah, if you don't love, you couldn't grieve. So
exactly, yeah,
that's really helpful. Thank you.
I think grief can be really beautiful, painful, but very beautiful, because it is part of a tender heart.
Yeah.
And the way we've been practicing this week, all this kind of softening and release, it may be for other people as well, there may be emotions bubbling up, and then we just bring the same quality of awareness to that. So we bring the same quality of awareness to whatever's arising, this kind of softening, grounding, presence, kindness. It might be that you're feeling happier, and it might be that, as Vidyakaya is saying, there's some grief or other sorrows arising, and then we're very tender around those, very tender and yielding around those. Yeah, but I think tears are also very interesting, because to some extent there can also be tension release. We can think I shouldn't cry, but I always like it when I cry, because there's something flowing, that I'm letting go of this tight fist of opposing life and just releasing into the flow of things. Yeah, and maybe, when you were talking about those images and you were right in the corner, could you imagine being one of the bodies of water, metaphorically, obviously?
Oh, one of the bodies of water. I can also go to that. Yeah, no, it was just the line of figures, like the part of me, I call him Gollum. He feels superior because he's not part of that sort of army. And yet, of course, he's completely cut off at the same time, more cut off than they are almost.
Yes.
Yeah, it's all work in progress.
Yes, good. Oh, well, thank you for sharing that, because I think you bringing up grief is really helpful for all of us. Yeah, good. Okay, look at this, it's 8:30. So tomorrow, we're going to do a bit on the imagination, and then we'll have a longer practice, just bringing everything together. So we'll do a practice similar today, but longer. But I'll also bring in the place of the imagination in the morning. Good. So Nick's put in the donation button again, and the website with all the fantastic resources on the website. So go well, everybody, today, and just see what happens as you remember that we are all part of this amazing kind of vital, living, connected world. And yeah, to see if you can allow others to humanize today and not just be objects. That's very interesting. And yourself, you're not just an object, you're a human. Good. Okay, so we unmute and say goodbye. And thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Vidyamala. Thank you, Nick.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.